to show that people should not give all the silver and gold they have, because the principle is that people should also be preserving some of that for their own needs. But I would say for their own maybe spiritual needs too, because this is like a testing ground. It's the obstacle course.
Right.
Spiritually.
Yeah.
It's Parshat Terumah, and before we jump in, Rebelli, I want to show everybody the new format for the source sheet. For those of you who would like to follow along in the Hebrew text, the Hebrew text is on a source sheet that we have posted in our website, in the Hebrew Learning Circle's website. I want to direct you here to the source sheet, which is on, now it's nested in our website. This is HebrewLearningCircles.org, and it's actually /parsha-video. And you can go into a different tab and then consult. If you're somebody who's fluent in the Hebrew, it would be useful for you to consult with the text. Here we have it. These are the psukim in Parshat Terumah that we're going to be discussing the commentary about. Commentary by Noam Elimelech, Rabbi Weisblum of Lizhensk, Elimelech Weisblum of Lizhensk, 1717 to 1787, a great master in the third generation of the Hasidic rabbis in that lineage. We'll be looking at verses, chapter 25 in Exodus, verses 3, 6, and 7 specifically, and with the Noam Elimelech, we'll be extracting some delicious inspiration and commentary here. And here is this is the section from the Noam Elimelech, from the book. Obviously, you can see that you can scroll down, up and down here. So go to our website, HebrewLearningCircles.org. You can also find it here if you just go to Jewish Resources and then Parsha Video. That's actually where that is held, where you're going to find it. And while you're there, feel free to browse our website for other Hebrew Learning Circles programs and resources.
Yeah, we have a beautiful Parsha, Parshas Terumah. This begins many parshas from now until the end of this second book, dealing with this amazing concept of the building of a physical structure whereby God allows His presence to dwell in a different way, seemingly, than God's presence reveals itself anywhere else in the created universe.
Yeah.
Actually, and this is interesting, Reb Ruven, because it ties into our shir last week, where a big part of the shir last week was the concept of ein mukdam u'meuchar l'Torah. There's not a necessarily chronological order to the Torah. This is a perfect example, because this instruction to build a mishkan, a tabernacle, actually did not occur until after the sin of the golden calf. This was a sort of a way to compensate, to do teshuvah for the sin of the golden calf. And it was put prior in the Torah to teach us that God prepares the antidote prior to the getting the injury, the illness.
The medicine is created before the illness.
Yeah. That's what I meant to say. Thank you.
No.
So that's one interesting thing. The instruction to build a Mishkan obviously required materials. And there were very specific materials that God required for the building of the tabernacle in the desert. There are many psukim describing these materials. There was gold, there was oil, things that were needed either for the building of the structure or the materials that were going to be needed to do the services that the priestly class, the Kohanim, were going to have to be performing within the tabernacle. And later, when we entered the land of Israel, this would become eventually a permanent space called the Beis HaMikdash, the temple.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Naim Elimelech is going to take these verses, which list certain of it's a machlekes, it's a difference of opinion, depending on how you count them. Were there 13 things needed? Were there 15 things needed? But these things here were needed, and they were received as an offering from the Jewish people who were wandering around the desert here.
And that's the word terumah, means donation. And the whole idea here is that the people are donating the materials.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let's read these psukim quickly. So this is again Exodus 25, and these the psukim are number 3, and then 6 and 7. It says, וזאת התרומה אשר תיקחו מאיתם זהב וכסף ונחושת. And these are the gifts or the donations that you shall accept from them, meaning the people, and that's gold, silver, and copper.
Yes, so there was gold required for some of the altars. There was copper required for a different altar. There was silver required for some of the structures as well. That was the basic materials that they used.
That's right. And then we're skipping verses 4 and 5. There's more of a list there. And then here it says, we're skipping because the Naam Elimelech will specifically refer to verses 6 and 7. And those are shemen lemaor besamim leshemen hamishcha v'liktor et hasamim.
The menorah had needed oil, as we know from the Hanukkah story, right? They needed oil for lighting the menorah. And on the smaller outer inner altar, they offered not animal sacrifices, but a sacrifice made up of different an incense offering made up of different spices.
Yep.
So they needed spices to be given so that they could use it, and also in the oil which they poured over the priests' heads to anoint them, there were also spices mixed into that mixture as well.
Avnei shoham ve'avnei miluim la'efod ve'lachoshen.
Right. So very quickly, in a later parsha, we're going to be discussing the clothing that the Kohanim were enjoined to wear. There was difference between the chief priest and the regular priests, what they had to wear. In any event, one of the items was a intricately woven linen garment, and on the shoulder area there were engraved into the garment some beautiful stones.
Yep.
And on the so-called over that went a breastplate, which was very beautifully decorated with stones, which maybe in that further parsha we'll get into that in detail. But so they needed very particular minerals and stones carved in a certain way to be used as part of the priestly garments.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So let's keep that in mind, that every one of those items in verse 6 and 7, where the Torah tells us exactly for what purpose they were being collected. Okay. Verse 3, the purpose is not actually clear, and let's jump into the Naam Elimelech. Ve'yesh lidakdek b'pasuk she'amar, and he says we have to pay attention to the details here of these pesukim that we just read, 6 and 7. Shemen lemaor v'chulei avnei shoam le'efod. So he's repeating those pesukim, oil for the purpose of lighting, the burning the light, and the precious stones for the breastplate, as just explained Rabeli. ונמצא מפרש הפסוק כל דבר מאלו לאיזה צורך הם באים. And we find that the Torah is explaining each item for what purpose it's being collected. ולגבי זהב וכסף סתם הכתוב. But when it comes to the gold and silver, the text, the Torah, is silent. ואינו מפרש לאיזה צורך הם באים, and it does not explain for what purpose the gold and the silver is being collected.
There must be a reason, some sort of a spiritual lesson to be learned from the fact that at the introduction of these materials,
Right.
the gold, silver, and copper, the reasons for their usages were not specifically stated.
Absolutely, yeah. אך העניין, דדרשו חז"ל. So this is so as the sages have taught. And here brings a pasuk that most of us know, ואהבת את השם אלוהיך בכל לבבך, בכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. But the sages says, ופרשו בכל ממונך. So what does that mean? So the question is, what is bechol meodecha? That is obscure language. And the sages clarify that and say, with all your money.
Zahavta, you should love God with all your hearts, with all your soul, and with all your might. Ma'odecha, it could mean in simple Hebrew language, with all your strength. But
that's also interpretive. If you
want
to be very literal, it doesn't even mean that. If you want to be very literal, you don't even know what it means. Because
it means more, like
exactly with
very much.
Yeah, so let's not take away the obscurity. You know, the obscurity is, what does it mean with all your much? It's like
right. Well, so one shot you mentioned, the first shot in Rashi is that it's interpreted as all your money, because with all your in other words, Rashi says there that some people, their money is worth more to them than their life.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, but by God, God should be more important to you than your whole being. Right. The second comes from the word me'odecha. Rashi interprets it as midah. Takes out the aleph. He says, bein midah tova, he says, whether or not good things happen, not good things happen, chas v'sholem, that we still serve God in all through the suffering and through the good times.
Right.
But the point is, as you rightly say, this word me'odecha is obscure.
Yeah.
And if it meant money,
yeah, that's right. And so here the Normally Melech, he says, well, the sages say mamoncha. Mamoncha means literally your money, your net worth, right? What you have, stuff, your material possession, right? Your material worth. V'yesh l'dakdek. And by the way, I mean this is consistent with Terumah. I mean this is the whole idea. It's the whole thing of Terumah. I'm giving my stuff for God, right? So just to get back to that. V'yesh l'dakdek. Lama lo amar befirush bechol mamoncha. So he's saying, if that is the case, why did they have to use the word bechol meodecha with all your what was it? More, with all your more? They should have said it directly. Bechol mamoncha.
Say what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. Velama shina katuv lichtov meodecha. So why did the Torah change the meaning to meodecha? We just said that. Ach she'atorah הקדושה רמזה לנו עוד דבר אחד. Well, obviously for a purpose, because the Torah wants to hint something to us. There's a lesson in that. דהנה השם יתברך ברוב רחמיו נתן לנו רשות ליהנות קצת בעולם הזה מכסף וזהב לצורכנו. Since, thus, the Holy One, blessed be, Berov Rachamav, with his great compassion, has given us the permission to enjoy a little bit. I like that phrasing, to enjoy a little bit in this world from the silver and the gold for our own needs. The
point being that we, and that's the whole point of the Mishkan, really, to show that spirituality can be expressed through the physical world. In other words, we're not saying, Jewish people aren't saying, the Torah isn't saying to go up on a mountaintop, to give away all your belongings and to wander like a who knows who and a who knows what. And that's what God wants. And to reject materialism.
Right.
That's not what the Judaism is about.
Right. Well, that's clear. But just, Rebelli, just to take that just a step backwards to the literal, the kind of literary analysis, the pasuk says, "Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elohecha bechol levavcha," with all of your hearts, bechol nafshecha, with all of your soul, and bechol meodecha, with all of your meodecha. If it said bechol mamoncha, it means the minute you get your paycheck, you give the whole paycheck to God.
Right.
So that would have been, we've been busted.
Right.
We'd be living on rations, and everything we make goes to God, right, or goes to the priest. And I think the point that he's making here is, so the Torah is telling us, wait a minute, you don't have to give everything. You can keep some.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying, is that we don't believe as Jews, we're not into the asceticism that we see in other, for instance, some cultures, with due respect. I'm not, that's another way, but, where people give everything, and I have respect for that too. But this is not the Jewish way. There's a balance.
Right.
All right. Where was that? אך לזה צריך שימור גדול, להיזהר מאוד מאוד, להתנהג כשורה בממונו. But in that case, for this, לזה, he means the fact that you can enjoy some of it, right? But if you're going to enjoy some of it, it takes great care or caution. Mm-hmm. And here he uses the word me'od, very, very much, right? And there we come back to the me'odecha, right? Me'od. Right. You have to have great care to conduct your money in a kashura, in a kosher way, in a good, in a righteous way.
Right. To use our material wealth and our possessions in a kosher way. People think that kosher means kosher food, yeah. But kasher means fit for use, actually. So anything we do in this world, some things can be done in a kosher way, and some things, we maybe not do it in a kosher way. Mm-hmm. And when we have geld, that's the biggest nisayon, right? How do we use our money?
Yeah. Absolutely. Ethically, without ethically, yeah.
Right.
So, and this is, we say this always to the bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah children. We say it's like, now you have responsibility. So yeah. Hashem gives us money. It comes with to enjoy. It also comes with the responsibility.
Right.
So, and this is why the Torah changed the language and wrote bechol meodecha, with all your very, upirshu chazal bechol mamoncha, which the sages interpret to be all of your money. Ramaz dvarenu halal. This is a hint to what we just said. What's the very much caution that you need to use when you're enjoying your money? Shizahel meod meod b'mamono. Just said that. So the point is, one should not come to to corruption, God forbid. You've given the gift. May it not corrupt you. I mean, the point is that you not to come to corruption. וצריך האדם לעמוק במחשבותיו, שלא יימצא בממונו שום עוון. And a person needs to reflect deeply that there should not be found any Avil is
it could be
wrong.
all, but I think it's avla, meaning like disgrace,
wrongdoing,
and avain,
Yeah.
So, in other words, with the money, not only, as you said, comes responsibility, but there's a possibility that it could lead a person, like we spoke a few weeks ago about losing one's name.
Mm-hmm.
The very fact that that now I can buy the power and I can buy the influence, so that exposes that person, and just like I can just get carried away and let the money flow, and it could flow to a place where that could become revealed, and then everything, the bottom falls out.
Yeah.
So he's saying you got to watch out. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
So to speak.
No, and what you're saying about the reputation, so that's why he's saying reflect deeply, because some of these things can happen like, you're not so, there's that gray area where you let things slide, it's not so.
Or a person could come to believe that because they have this wealth and power, that they're immune. I mean, we see that every day, many times a day with politicians and people in the public view, that they say or do things that you think to yourself, how did this person in a million years think they were going to get away with that? But the lack of self-awareness and narcissism that comes sometimes with power and wealth blinds. That's what he's talking about. I think the person just becomes blind to what's happening.
Right.
And that could end up chas v'shalom with avla.
Right. By the way, here's the connection to we were discussing before we started teaching. We're discussing ma gadlu ma'aseh chaya machshavotecha, and here it is la'amok b'machshavotav. You see, to that original pasuk. So there's just for our listeners, we were discussing. He somehow connects it to a verse in Tehillim where it says, "God, your thoughts, your designs are so deep," and here he turns it over and says, forget God's thoughts so deep. It's your thoughts to be so deep in this matter. I just caught that. I mean, I didn't, because I asked you originally, why did he bring that?
It could be. Yeah.
So I just caught it. Okay. ולכן לא נאמר בכסף וזהב לאיזה צורך. And this is why in the Torah, it does not say for what purpose the silver and the gold are being collected. דרמז דניתן רשות גם כן ליהנות בני אדם קצת מממונם לצורכיהם. To show that people should not give all the silver and gold they have, because the principle is that people should also be preserving some of that for their own needs. But I would say for their own maybe spiritual needs too, because this is like a testing ground. It's the obstacle course.
Right.
Spiritually,
because just like fire, it could provide heat in the freezing cold New York winter. It could cook your food for you, but it could also be destructive. It could burn things down. So too, money. Money can be used for ethical purposes, for good purposes, for constructive purposes, and also for a little enjoyment, as Noam Elimelech said. But unfortunately, it can also be used, as we've discussed here, for destructive.
Right.
Either destructive to society or destructive to ourselves.
Right.
So he's saying that, and he had to be shown a coin, not just a coin of fire.
Yeah.
Because Moshe's question was, how could it be that by giving a half a coin that the people are forgiven for the big sin of worshiping the golden calf? What's even the connection here?
Yeah.
That's the biggest Avera ever, and yet I give a half a penny and I'm good to go. How could that be? Yeah. So God said, no, it's a coin. When you give a coin with the right mindfulness and the right intention, and you give it to tzedakah and you give it to worthy organizations, this is the whole point of money in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's the coin of fire.
Yeah.
And that ties in right here to that balance of what we do with the money and how we utilize the money. Absolutely.
It's very beautiful because we often, there's a tendency, I'll speak for myself, I have a tendency to think about when I get into spirituality and the temple and God and everything, and it's like, it's like money is not a consideration, but here, we're being reminded that money is dafka, where one of those places where we have to pay a lot of attention, especially the way the Torah is asking us to handle ourselves in a good, balanced way. So we should all be blessed with that, and be really rise both in our spirituality and in our material lives in balance and in parallel, in good ways. And I think with that, we're going to wrap it up here today. It's a good place to close. So I'd love to hear from people about how do you like the new format for the source sheet? We're still not completely settled on the technology, but it's going to be sitting in our website moving forward. Again, you can go to our website for the source sheet at HebrewLearningCircles.org. I believe it's /parsha-video. Or just go into the website and click on Jewish resources and find the Parsha videos, and it's in there. And did I mention subscribing? If you haven't yet, it's no coins to you, and it's spiritually and emotionally means a lot to us. We really like to have you, in with us all the way. Come back again, like us if you mean it. And I think with that, we'll say goodbye until next Wednesday, God willing, for more Parsha and Chassidut. Shalom for now. Rabim lo yuchlu